Okay, today we're going to talk about how to convert between rational exponents and radicals. But before we do that, I want you to go ahead and check your answers for your homework from yesterday. So you can pause the video here in a second. When you're checking your homework, remember that your answers might be written in a different order than what's here. Just make sure your variables and your exponents match. So for example, number 1, we would typically write 3x instead of x times 3. So go ahead and hit pause, check your answers. We will go through any you have questions on tomorrow, and then hit play when you're ready to go. Okay, so as I mentioned, we are going to talk about how to convert between rational exponents and radicals. There's a couple things you need to know, or there are a couple things you need to know about a radical before we talk about how to convert to a rational exponent and back. So when we look at this radical over here, this square root of x to the 5th, there's a little number typically in the little v of the radical called the index. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and fill that in. If there's nothing there, we automatically know that it's a square root. So you could put a 2 in here anytime there's not a number. The other parts you need to know are the base and the exponent that are under the radical. So my base here is x, my exponent is 5. We can use these numbers, the base, the exponent, and the index, to rewrite the radical as an expression with a rational exponent. Okay, remember it's a fraction. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to take the exponent that's inside the radical and move it to the numerator, and then the index moves to the denominator. Okay, so notice my base here is going to stay the same. I still have my x, but I'm going to take my exponent from the inside. Okay, so I have my x to the 5th power here. So this is going to become my numerator, and this index is going to become my denominator. So converting from a radical to a rational exponent looks like that. Okay, you could also work backwards. Going from a rational exponent back to a radical, the numerator becomes your exponent, the denominator becomes your index. Now, typically we don't write the 2 in there, but you could if you needed to. Okay, so let's go ahead and try a couple of these. We're actually going to convert from a rational exponent to a radical first. So let me pick a different color here. So when you're doing this, okay, we're always going to have our radical sign. The base is going to stay the same. And there are a couple ways you could write this. The numerator here, the 1, is going to become your exponent. Remember that 5 to the 1st is the same thing as 5, so you don't actually have to write it there. But typically, you're going to see that exponent right there. The denominator is the 3. That goes in my index. So here's what you need to know. Numerator becomes your exponent. Denominator becomes your index. Okay, so for B, make your radical sign. My base is staying the same. My numerator becomes my exponent. My denominator becomes my index. Now, you could see this written a different way. You might see something like this, the 4th root of 3 to the 5th power. This is also acceptable. Those are exactly the same thing. Okay, same thing over here. We could rewrite it that way. Okay, so those are exactly the same. When you look at the bottom 2 on this page, there are parentheses there. So when you fill this in your radical, make sure you put the parentheses there still. Okay, numerator becomes my exponent, denominator becomes my index. Okay, so denominator is my index, numerator is my exponent. Okay, last one. Again, there's parentheses, so I'm going to leave my parentheses around my 6b. Numerator becomes my exponent, denominator becomes my index. So one other way that you would see this, because anything to the 1st power is itself, you might just see this for an answer. And those are the same thing. So the cubed root of 6b. Go ahead, hit pause, try your guided practice problems on the next slide. When you are finished, have them checked, and then you can go on to the next slide. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and convert backwards. So we're going to go from radicals to rational expressions. Sorry, radicals to rational exponents. So In this, our base is still going to stay the same. If there's not an exponent there, you can put a 1. So when I do this, my base is the same. My exponent is going to go on the top of my fraction. My index is going to go on the bottom. So I have 5 to the 1/4 power. Remember when you do this that if there's not a number here, you can always put a 2 in for your index. So my base stays the same. My exponent becomes my numerator, so the 3 becomes my numerator. The index is the denominator. When you do the bottom two, just like we did going the other way, since there's more than one thing in there, there's a variable and a coefficient, we need to make sure we put those in parentheses together. Okay, so my base is 10x, the whole thing. Numerator is my exponent, denominator is my index. One more, remember that index there is 2, so my base stays the same. Since it's only an x, I don't have to put parentheses around it. I could, it's not going to affect anything. My exponent becomes my numerator, my index becomes my denominator. Go ahead and try the next 4 problems. When you are finished, have those checked. And if you do well in all the guided practice problems, you can get your homework and get started. It will be due tomorrow. Okay, so today we did rewriting rational exponents. You do have a worksheet for homework, and tomorrow we're going to start simplifying radicals. If you have questions, ask a partner or the sub, and we will go through this tomorrow. Have a great day.